welcome to Soccer Talk with the Soul, as always brought to you by New Mexico Pinon Coffee. Sebastian Noel in for Adam Deal this week. I'm joined by Larry Espinoza, General Manager of the Albuquerque Sol.
What's going on, Sebastian?
It's been a while since we've been on, right?
I know.
England has hired and fired a manager since we've last aired a show.
Well, that could have been since last week.
That's
it
true.
Wouldn't have mattered. So.
That's true. So we're in the off season for the Sol, but really there's no such thing because you guys really stay busy during the off season.
Yeah, we work pretty hard on how to make this a year-round business. We're doing a lot of marketing of ourselves, trying to grow our sponsorship base. We've got a few events coming up. We've got a first responders that we're doing. We started a print publication called What's Brewing. We'll get into that here in a little bit. We're going to do a Boxing Day tournament. Or a Boxing Day bash, if you will, and then getting ready for tryouts. Just had done having a real successful FootGolf tournament, and so it's exciting growing this to really being a full round, year-round business.
So let's talk about that. This first segment is brought to you by Clark's Pet Supply. Let's talk about everything that's been going on. Let's run right through it and start with the FootGolf. For those of our listeners or our viewers that don't know what that was all about, recap that for us. We're going to take a look at some highlights later, but just give us a quick overview on how successful of an event it was.
FootGolf was something that we heard about, I think, 2 years ago now. Everybody kind of gives you that look of FootGolf. What exactly is FootGolf? It's just like golf, except you kick a soccer ball. They've made a 21-inch diameter hole for that you put in and put the soccer ball in and on the rough, and you gauge distance and the terrain, and you play it just like golf. And it can be just as frustrating as golf. It's a lot of fun. Last year we had a successful event and we had 34 people show up to play. This year we did a lot more promoting. We got some great sponsors on board. US Bank came on board. We partnered with the NB3 Foundation and had a lot of really cool sponsors all the way around.
Now my question is, can you bring your growler of Star Brothers to the course?
It was not allowed. However, there was Star Brothers being served on the course.
Well, that's all I need.
Yeah, and so the magic number this year, 34 people said, you get 60, you'll be good. 72 would have maxed out the course. We had 108 people. Wow. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So how was that facilitated?
Very carefully. It was a lot of running around by Ron and I. We just had 2 flights go off on certain holes, and still managed to play everything in right around 2.5, 3 hours. So.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And you guys are really trying to build something from the ground up here. So how important is planting your roots in the community?
It's huge. We actually, one of the things that became important to Ron and I when we started this was that we needed to give back. So as part of that, we've now started a foundation as well. And we have three major branches of the foundation that we're focused on, and small little things that pop up. Like this weekend, we're doing first responders that we'll get into here a little bit later on in the show.
I'm convinced that Ron's going to run for mayor one day, so I always try to be really nice to him.
I don't think he can. That's my benefit, and that's my saving grace. I don't know if I could handle him as mayor.
I don't know, man. He's all over the place.
You know what? We were fortunate to just get done doing a competition called Rise of the Rest. A gentleman by the name of Steve Case came into town, who was co-founder of AOL. And he listened to 8 companies do a pitch competition. There was only one person that could do the pitch, and we knew that Ron was the man for the job. If people didn't know who the Sol was before, from the entrepreneurial community, they were at that event. They got to understand who the Sol was. And Ron, if using a baseball analogy term, he knocked it out of the park. It was absolutely fantastic.
Great. Well, let's move through these rest of these events. Tryouts soon, right?
First weekend in January. I think the tentative date right now is the 7th. We're getting ready to put all our marketing, and we're going to probably start marketing it a lot earlier this year than we have before. We managed to get, I think, close to 90 people show up last year. 115 our first couple of years. And we get phone calls and emails all the time now. When are your tryouts? When are your tryouts?
And what is that target pool that you're trying to reach with tryouts? Is it collegiate players? Is it graduated high school seniors? I know I have a friend that graduated from Bernalillo High School, and I mentioned it to him before, hey, have you ever looked into that? And he was like, oh, I don't know how it works. I don't know if I'm big enough to be on the Soul.
That's the thing, is come out, try out, take a look, gauge your level. We've had a couple of guys that came out of nowhere. No one knew who they were, playing wise. You know, in the adult leagues, they didn't play high school here. All of a sudden, they just showed up, and some of these guys were really, really talented. We had no idea who they were, and they ended up playing on the squad.
So, how can they contact you if someone is interested in tryouts?
You can go to abqsolfc.com. We'll start posting things there, and then one of the things that we're really good at is pushing things out through social media. You can always go to ABQ Sol FC on Facebook and ABQ Sol FC on Twitter as well.
Now let's talk about First Responders Night, as that is a big event that's up and coming.
Yeah, it's coming up this Saturday. If you have some free time, come out and help those that we normally only think about when we need them, and they need a lot of support, and we'll get into that a little bit. It's been weighing heavy on my heart, so something that I wanted to do for them.
Right, so we'll get into that a little bit more later. There was a nice article or a nice write-up on krqe.com about that. Boxing Day tournament, lastly?
Boxing Day, it's going to be a really cool, basically FIFA video game event that we do over at International Soccer, and you know, you can, in your downtime in between games, you're going to be able to play some soccer out on the field.
So yeah, a lot of events coming up with the Albuquerque Sol. I mean, we could talk for hours really about the community events that you guys do. Your off-season calendar is amazingly full, but that's all the events we're going to cover in this first segment, brought to you by Clark's Pet Supply. We'll come back on the other side of this break. We'll be joined by a guest. You're watching Soccer Talk with the Soul, presented as always by New Mexico Pino and Coffee. Hey, welcome back to Soccer Talk with the Soul, brought to you by New Mexico Pino and Coffee. Sebastian Noel in for Adam Deal, Larry Espinoza, and now we're joined by Patty Farrell of the Albuquerque United and the Albuquerque Soul. Welcome to
How's it going?
A new member to the Albuquerque soccer community,
Yeah.
I hear, right?
Yep, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate Ron giving me the opportunity to come out, and Larry here too.
So what brought you out here to Albuquerque?
So I was a GM of a different PDL franchise, and I started that role last August after taking a full-time job at a youth soccer club. And every year they have an annual general managers meeting down in Florida, and who do I bump into? None other than Ron Patel. Didn't know him before. Definitely knew him by the end of it, which was a good time. And you know, we just hit it off. We hung out. We went to a few meetings together. We discussed. He told me about his vision in Albuquerque, and the only thing I thought about Albuquerque was, well, it's just a land and a desert, and that's about
Bugs
it.
Bunny?
Yeah, I mean, it was, and then, well, I met the Roadrunner out
But
here,
there's a
too,
goal
so-
on each end of that desert, so you can play soccer, it turns
so
out.
apparently there's soccer that goes on down here, and so he'd spoken to me about it and told me about it, and I was just like, oh, you know, maybe I'll check it out sometime, and he said, you got to come down, and when you come down, I'll put you up, no worries, and you can come see Albuquerque, and then next thing you know, I was chit-chatting with him and on the phone, and we kept in touch, and said, you know, I think this could be a cool thing, so maybe in a year or two, if you see any jobs come up in the soccer world, let me know. And called me the next day, and he goes, hey, I have a job for you. And I went, wait, seriously? And he goes, yeah, give me your resume, I'm putting it in. And about 2 days later, I had a job here.
So what is the goal or vision for every PDL general manager? And I know you guys can both speak to that.
Do you want to go first?
It's been interesting for us. I don't know that it's the same across the country, but for us, the goal has been to grow something to the point where we can scale it upwards. The goal has always been a plan of 5 years, 3 to 5 years to go USL, which we're hoping to do by 2018. And it looks like we're going to achieve that goal. And then the big, hairy, audacious goal has always been MLS by 2024. So that's been our goal. I can't speak to how Patty ran things in where he's from, but my job primarily is to run everything in between. We have the upper management group, and then we have the technical side of things. So I don't touch anything of the coaching. I gave that hat up a long time ago. But the goal has been to try to run everything in the middle and do it as best as we can to grow the organization.
Yeah, with us, it was definitely different. We had a large youth club with a couple players who had turned out to be professionals. One of the big ones is Danny Barbieri. He plays on the U18 national team, plays over at West Brom. He came out of our club for a couple years, and then as well as a couple others. And so what our organization thought was, okay, how do we continue with the rest of the players that they can still envision themselves as moving up the ladder? What can they physically see? And with our younger players, it's a PDL franchise, right? So that's the jump. What do you do in your college off season that you can get high intense training, right? You're in an elite environment. There's top players around you, good coaches, good competition. Well, the PDL, right? So there's not going to be that step for everybody where they can just play college ball and then they go into they're in MLS academies or trainings with their MLS academies that they came from. And the PDL is that stepping stone. So this was like a connector because at the time, Philadelphia Union had just put in a USL franchise in Bethlehem. And so now it was like there was the stairway all the way through. You could see it from where we were. Where we trained was right next to where Bethlehem Steel had played their matches at Lehigh University. I coached in games, and right afterwards, me and some of the team would go over and watch the team play Bethlehem Steel. So it was really just connecting that path. And some organizations, I think, look at that, and I think we really looked at it. It's a professional development tool for our players.
So what was your hook? Well, how did Ron hook you to coming to Albuquerque? I mean, I'm sure he didn't just pick up the tab at the end of the night. That wasn't the hook, right?
No,
what was the vision? Wow, I'm going to talk to Ron about that.
Exactly.
We're going to bring that up for sure.
You're getting the short end of the
He's
stick.
shortchanging you guys, I guess.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, what did he really sell on coming to Albuquerque?
It wasn't the Albuquerque, it was him. Something I've always been a believer in is in following good leaders. I've always strived to be a leader to other people, and when I met Ron and he talked about it, and you could see the almost kiddish excitement in him, and how he believed it was possible. And even if it never was in a million years, he believed it. And I think there's that sense that we really want to believe in sometimes impossible things. And as he explained his program,
It's the story of an England soccer fan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's possible to get to the second round once in a while, right? But he believed in it, and then the more we spoke about it, the more I realized it was actually getting closer. And I was just like, hold on a second, this is a guy who believes in it. I need to start believing more in certain things. And as a player, I was one that I went to a Division III school, and I didn't play much my first 3 years. My fourth year, I wound up being one of the top leading points in all categories, and I looked to professional opportunities. I was in training with the USL, and I remember it was like a flashback to when I remembered believing, even though I couldn't see it coming through. When I remember and just think, yeah, I could be a pro. I can do it. I don't care where I start. And then when Ron started talking about it, and he's like, we want to be a USL, and me thinking, I've never heard of any pro team out of Albuquerque. I mean, I don't think I've heard of a pro player out of Albuquerque. Apparently there's UFC fighters here, though. So when he kind of brought that up, I was just like, this is amazing. And then as we got closer and closer, and we sat down once I got here, and I was just like, he's really close to it. And I was like, these are the people I need to be surrounded with. The guys who believe in excellence, the guys who believe in perfection, the guys who believe that they can get to the next level wherever they start at.
And you kind of touched on what was going to be my next question is what had you heard, if anything, about the Albuquerque soccer community as a whole?
Absolutely nothing. I had never heard of any team come out of New Mexico. I knew UNM were in the Final Four because their actual Final Four took match in Philadelphia in PP&L Park, now Talon Energy Stadium. And that was about the only thing I knew. And I was just like, they probably just got a bunch of players from outside the area anyway. But I knew nothing about Albuquerque, knew nothing about New Mexico.
And, I mean, have you seen anything change since you've got, I mean, the community is incredibly tight-knit. Have you got to experience that yet?
Yeah, on different scopes. I realize the soccer community is very tight-knit. And, I mean, you see coaches all the time. I go to the UNM games. I see Larry here. I see Ron there. I see coaches from Rio that I sit next to and, like, that sort of stuff. You realize everybody's kind of intertwined with each other in the soccer community.
All right. Well, hey, we're glad to have you in Albuquerque. We're glad to have you part of the Albuquerque Souls vision. I'm sure Larry would concur with that.
Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for this segment. We're going to take a commercial break, turn some of our attention to the Premier League and happenings of that such. We'll be right back. You're watching Soccer Talk with the Soul, brought to you as always by New Mexico Pino and Coffee.